Jessica Barnes lived in a world that rarely gave her a moment to breathe. A single mother and full-time trauma nurse, she had grown used to juggling crises both at work and at home. Her 7-year-old son, Caleb, had a rare genetic disorder so obscure that even seasoned doctors paused at its name. It wasn't fatal, but only if he received a precise dose of refrigerated medication every 24 hours. Getting that medication covered by insurance had been a months-long ordeal of paperwork, appeals, and tears. Every month, the drug was delivered in a thick, temperature-controlled box marked with bold red letters. Urgent medical delivery. Refrigerate immediately. Do not tamper. It was delivered like clockwork, always between noon and 1 p.m., and on that Wednesday, everything seemed routine. Jessica was working a double shift. Her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Anders, usually watched for the delivery, but she had a dental appointment that day. Still, Jessica trusted the process. The packaging practically shouted its importance. At 12:16 p.m., her phone buzzed. Package delivered. She checked her home camera feed. The courier placed the white box neatly beside the welcome mat, snapped a photo, and walked away. Everything looked fine. But when she arrived home at 5:07 p.m., exhausted and drained, the box was gone. No note. No trace. At first, Jessica assumed the worst, porch theft. But when she rewound the camera footage, she saw a man in a tucked-in blue polo with a clipboard and badge that read Westvale Ridge HOA. At 12:47 p.m., he scanned the box with his phone, picked it up without hesitation, and walked off. At 6:19 p.m., Jessica received an email. Subject: Regulation Enforcement Notice, Parcel Removal. It cited Regulation 4.6 of the HOA Guidelines. Any unattended item on a visible surface for more than 30 minutes would be subject to immediate removal. The email ended with 4 words that made her stomach drop. Item has been disposed. The air around her went still. She reread the message 3 times. Her hands trembled. This wasn't an act of theft. It was policy. She called the HOA office. Voicemail. Jessica stood in the middle of her kitchen, hospital badge still hanging from her neck, the scent of antiseptic still clinging to her clothes, and she felt her body collapse from the inside out. Someone, without warning, without asking, had thrown away the medication her son needed to survive. The next morning, she barely slept. Caleb was still stable, but time was not on her side. At 8 a.m., she called the HOA office. A chipper female voice answered. Hi, my name is Jessica Barnes. I live at 304 Pine Hollow Drive. I need to speak with someone about a package that was removed from my porch yesterday. A brief pause. Click. This is Elaine Porter, said a cooler, older voice. Jessica knew the name. The HOA president. A woman known more for her perfectly trimmed hedges than compassion. That package was my son's medication. It was temperature sensitive and irreplaceable. You threw it away. Elaine's voice remained unshaken. We enforced Regulation 4.6. Items left unattended on porches beyond 30 minutes are removed. The parcel violated policy. Did you read the label? It said, urgent medical use, in huge letters. We do not inspect the contents of packages. That would be a liability. We are not a pharmacy, Miss Barnes. It is not our responsibility to verify claims made by residents. Jessica's throat closed. This wasn't an old magazine or delivery from a retailer. This was life-saving medication. You signed the HOA agreement when you moved in. The policy applies to all residents equally. Jessica hung up. Quietly. Deliberately. Her hands shaking. By that night, Caleb's condition had worsened. He was weak, feverish, and vomiting. At midnight, she drove him to the ER where she worked, now as a desperate mother instead of a steady-handed nurse. Doctors tried to stabilize him. N4 was inserted. Monitors beeped rhythmically. But the risk was real. The clock was ticking. Jessica spent the next several hours on the phone with insurance reps. Each one shuffled her along. Expedited refills take 3 to 5 business days, they said. But Caleb didn't have 5 days. At 11:30 p.m., numb and furious, Jessica posted in the Westvale Ridge Community Facebook group. I don't usually post here, but I need to speak up. Yesterday, my son's life-saving medication was thrown away by the HOA because the package was left on my porch for 31 minutes. It was labeled. It was sealed. It was vital. He is now in the hospital because of this. I just want you all to know what happened. She hit post and waited. The response came like a flood. They did what? This is outrageous. Elaine fined me for having a bird feeder. They made me repaint my garage because the beige was too light. Story after story poured in. Minor infractions turned into absurd punishments. Neighbors who had been silently complying were now speaking up, but no one had ever nearly lost a child until now. The next morning, Jessica was asked by a neighbor if she would consider legal action. She hadn't thought about it, but as she watched her son lie in a hospital bed, wires attached to his arms, the answer became clear. She filed a civil suit against Westvale Ridge HOA for gross negligence and emotional distress. The case made headlines. First local news, then regional. Judge Michael Arlen was assigned. Known for his stern adherence to procedure, many assumed he would side with the HOA. Jessica didn't care. She wanted the truth heard. During the second hearing, she presented the ring footage, the medical package, the HOA official removing it. Elaine's attorney tried to downplay it. The HOA followed protocol, he insisted. No intent to harm. Then Jessica stood. That box was clearly labeled. It wasn't garbage. It was my son's medication. And now I'm asking this court to decide whether regulations matter more than lives. The room went still. The third hearing brought something no one expected. Jessica rolled a small silver mini fridge into the courtroom, plugged it in, opened it, pulled out a box identical to the one that had been discarded. White. Foam. Marked with urgent red text. This, she said, is what they threw away. This is what keeps my son alive. She placed it carefully atop the fridge. The judge stared at it. You didn't enforce a rule, she told Elaine. You played God. The judge leaned back in his chair. The courtroom was silent. A week later, he delivered the verdict. In the matter of Barnes versus Westvale Ridge HOA, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff. The HOA is liable for negligence resulting in preventable medical harm and emotional distress. Jessica was awarded $125,000 in damages. The HOA was ordered to revise its policies to protect medical deliveries and to issue a formal apology. Elaine Porter resigned 2 days later. Quietly, without a statement. The story went national. Other HOAs across the country began re-examining their rules. Within a month, dozens adopted new policies explicitly protecting medical items. Jessica stayed home with Caleb. No interviews. No press tour. Just healing. And when the next delivery came, she was waiting. She took the box straight to the fridge. Caleb, now recovering, smiled from the kitchen table. The neighborhood felt different now. Neighbors who once stayed silent now waved. The new HOA board asked Jessica to speak at their first meeting. She did. Rules are meant to protect people, she said, not punish them. And sometimes, all it takes is one voice, brave enough to speak when silence would have been easier. Jessica Barnes had been that voice. And a little boy named Caleb got to keep drawing spaceships because of it.